Sir, it's Nazli Sabipur. Can you... Thank you.
Yeah. Remember.
We know who you mean.
Hello? Yes.
Absolutely, affirmation.
Yes, absolutely.
Please repeat after me. I, followed by your full name,
I, Nazli Sabipur,
do solemnly,
sincerely,
truly declare
and truly declare
and affirm
under firm,
that the evidence
and affirm, sorry, that the evidence I should give
should be the truth,
should be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
nothing but.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Miss Sabipur. I'm going through the same process with you now that I've gone through with the appellant. As with your father, can you just keep an eye on the inspector's pen or fingers? And if he looks like he's struggling to keep up with you, just slow down. And obviously make sure you speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear viewing at home or within the room.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take you quite shortly to a few points in your evidence. And in this case, you've produced a proof of evidence and you've previously made a statutory declaration. And that statutory declaration can be found at CD 3.8. Now, you're the operations manager at the George and you're the appellant's daughter. Could you just very briefly explain your role at the George?
Yes, absolutely. So I used to run the George when we were a traditional hotel and restaurant before COVID for several years. And following that, I was involved in the conversion to the newer model from 2021, kind of the madness in 2020, the conversion in 2021, and overseeing thereafter. In recent years, I haven't been as hands-on in the day-to-day. Admittedly, we have had someone who's been managing it for us, the hotel manager, but I have been overseeing everything.
Now, when you describe the new model in 2021, just to be clear, we're talking about the long stay model.
Absolutely. So the longer stay model and the inclusion of the kitchenettes within our rooms, that's what I'd be referring to.
Now, we heard your father give evidence about how he took inspiration from another hotel elsewhere. Are you able to say what role you had in setting up the new model, if any?
Absolutely. So prior to COVID, our hotel's a boutique hotel in Baldock. It's probably the only one of its kind within the town. And we've always historically had business clientele. So predominantly our hotel would be really busy Monday to Friday. And then in the weekends, it would be really quiet to the point where most of the time we would have to shut. People who'd come and stay with us were working professionals. They'd come and stay Monday to Friday, then go home to their families on the weekend. And following COVID, we weren't able to keep that model going. It just wasn't economically viable. We also couldn't compete with the local budget hotels, such as the Travelodge that opened up in Letchworth, really close by. So supporting the same clientele, they asked us if we could put together a model where they could stay a little bit longer. So in answer to supporting the same business clientele that we've always had, we installed the kitchenettes so that we'd service the same clientele in the same way. The only difference is instead of going home for the weekends, they could leave their things.
Thank you. Now, when you say you installed the kitchenettes, when were the kitchenettes installed?
Between February and November 2021, with our first tenants starting in February 2021.
And how are you sure of that date?
Because we have tenancy agreements with them, we have bank statements, occupancy information, everything we've provided to date.
Were you present when the work took place?
Yes, I was, yes.
In terms of setting up the model, we've heard evidence and seen evidence about the types of agreements that were put in place for occupation. Now, they're described as tenancy agreements. Can you explain how those documents came to be used for a hotel?
Absolutely. So initially, when we moved from the kind of classical nightly hotel to a longer term stay, which was a month, sometimes 3 months, we were really struggling to find a document to regularize this and a document that would reflect the model that we had. So the only thing that I could find was this kind of AST aligned model, which is what we implemented and we had in place. So that was just to reflect the nature of our agreement with the guests that were staying at the time, that it would be longer term. Initially, we had a minimum commitment of 3 months, and then we moved to 1 month to give them more flexibility. Then over time, we moved to a hotel style check-in form.
One of the points that came up whilst your father was giving evidence is the response to one of the PCNs, where you initially, or the appellant initially, declined to disclose the names and addresses and lengths of stay for people in the rooms. Are you able to explain how that came to pass?
Absolutely. So we've traditionally been in restaurants and hotels the whole of my career. My father's predominantly as well. Giving out private information of guests that are staying with us is something we take very, very seriously. It's something that my initial reaction would be that we are not able to do it at all. And that's the reason for which we explained that due to privacy regulations, we wouldn't be able to just give out personal details to all these people who've given us details for a very different reason. After that, we were given advice by James Gran, our planning advisor, that we should actually be providing this information. And at that point, we did so.
Thank you. And that explains why the material was provided in December.
Exactly, yes.
Heard your father questioned about the idea of permanent residence at the premises, been there for 5 years. Do you know anything about permanent residency as it's been described?
I wouldn't be able to comment on permanent residency in terms of legal or planning classification. I can say to date, I'm not aware of how many people or who is using this site as their permanent residence. Mr. Ranatunga previously brought up that we have a couple of people who've stayed with us over a little bit of a longer period, but even amongst them, one of them goes home every weekend. And as we understand, permanently resides with their family elsewhere. So I wouldn't be at liberty to say how many people permanently reside on site.
I want to just clarify some points on continuity of the rooms. What happens when a room becomes vacant?
When a room becomes vacant, usually they'll give us a little bit of notice, and then we put an advert up. We predominantly use spare rooms for our adverts, where we explain the hotel apartment model. On spare rooms, there are hotels that also advertise a traditional hotel model, but we are very clear that we are longer stay to differentiate from that. They'll contact us. We can send them any information relating to the booking if they'd like, and then they can either have a visit or just move in. So we always have someone who's there to check them in. We show them everything that they need, and then upon departure, we always have someone who checks them out as well. We do also clean the room, so we do a deep clean of rooms, obviously between people, because as we've said, this model came into place after COVID, where that cleanliness and that hygiene element was super, super important.
At paragraph 4.1 of your proof of evidence, you describe an occupancy spreadsheet, which I'm going to take you to, and it's CD 3.10.
Okay.
Or it should be CD 3.10.
That's CD 3. I've got CD 5.1. Is that? Oh, sorry, it's the other folder. CD 3.
If you're struggling, I wonder if
I am struggling. I'm sorry. Is it CD 10?
Yes. Sorry, hang on.
3.1?
3.10, so 3.10.
Sorry, Simon, I've got 3. This is 3.1. That's existing floor plan. 3.1. 3.10. Okay. CD. That's just 10.
Yeah, those 10 really.
This 3.10. Very confusing. Yeah. Excuse me, it's a little bit confusing. Yeah, 3.31.
So I've got a copy of the index, which shows it at 3.10.
Oh, that looks good. 13. Perfect. Thank you, Simon.
Can you just explain to the inspector, is this a document that you've created?
Oh, sorry, excuse me. I didn't hear that.
This occupancy spreadsheet, is
Yeah.
this a document that you've created?
Yes, myself along with Danielle, who's our hotel manager.
And the data that's in it, where did it come from?
This is the data that we collect from our occupancy spreadsheets. We keep a record of when someone comes into a room, when they leave, and just any comments or anything about the tenants.
Can you just take the inspector through that spreadsheet and just explain what it shows?
Of course. So at the top, you have all the rooms from 1 to 20. And then you can see the guest names who were there in 2021, the guest names who were there in 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026. I believe all of our documentation was provided in November 2025. So obviously since then there have been some changes, some additional people, but this is the up to date as of the point where we submitted everything. And then below that as well, we've got on the left hand side the names of all the guests, the move in dates, the move out dates. It's the people who are current, one of them is no longer, and then the vacant months as well. So you can see there's very few months that we actually had the rooms available for. They were quite busy all of the time. They were quite popular. We often had a waiting list as well.
And then you've got the length of stay, which presumably does what it says on the tin.
Yes. That's just underneath the length of stay.
Thank you. A point's been made by Mr. Curling in his evidence about tenancy agreements not being dated and not being signed. What's your response to that?
To be frank, that's predominantly an issue of admin. So we've had a couple of people who've helped us manage the hotel apartment so far. As I said, in terms of hotel manager, our previous person who left was probably with us the longest time, and a couple of documents were saved on her Google Drive, her working Google Drive. But when she left, we didn't have access to it. So we've been working with our IT manager to try and get access to send the files across. One of the contracts that I think has also been flagged by Simon Curling in his witness statement is that of Lucas Mill Tennis, that it took us a little bit longer to find. But that was also because it was saved on Sophie, our previous hotel manager's drive, and that's why it's taking a little bit longer.
Now, you appreciate that you're in the slightly odd position that you're giving evidence about the operation of a hotel, but we're obviously dealing with an appeal in respect of a characterization of that hotel as flats. What do you understand the difference to be between the hotel that you were running and the claim that they're now flats that the LPA has made?
Well, to be frank, I genuinely have felt that what we are running is a hotel model. And the only time that has changed has been since the November 2025 letter that we received from the council. How it's similar to a hotel and why I believe that it was a hotel is firstly that it's our boutique hotel rooms, which I understand we'll have a look at a little bit later, are exactly the same to when we ran it as a classical hotel. They come fully furnished. So we have bed, bedside table, bedside lamps, beds. We have everything that you'd need in the shower. We provide non-slip mats. So exactly the same as we'd provided. The only difference is that we've installed the small kitchenettes. That is what we were transparent with the council about since April 2022. Additionally, we have housekeeping that services all the communal areas 2 times a week. We also offer housekeeping services if people would like that in addition. We have a breakfast offering. We have a reception service. All of our bills and utilities are included. We service exactly the same clientele as we did prior. And more so, we received the letter of no breach from the council in March 2024, which further gave us the confidence that it is in fact still a hotel.
And now, having seen the enforcement notice, having heard your father's evidence and seen the evidence within the appeal, do you see how the hotel came to be characterised as flats?
To be honest, Mr. Bell, I'm not qualified to speak on the planning legislation. I am inclined to agree with what the more qualified professionals within the room are telling us. But it was the same professionals who previously told us that we were not out of line for being a hotel.
The allegation has been made that in dealing with the council since 2022 onwards, that the appellant, and by implication, I suspect, yourself and other members of staff, have sought to deliberately conceal from the local authority that you're in fact running a block of flats. What's your response to that?
That's something that honestly we take really seriously as an accusation. We've made every effort to be transparent with the council. We've answered every question that they've asked. We've provided as much information as we could by way of bank statements, tenancy information, the contracts that we've had with them, our occupancy records, floor plans of every single room. We've accommodated 4 site visits. And we would have been happy to accommodate further if they would have requested. But we've been absolutely clear right from the beginning with regards to the kitchenettes that we installed and with regards to the longer stay from the 1st of April 2022. Nothing has changed since that point. And it appears those 2 grounds that the council hold issue with at this point.
Thank you. I have no more questions for you by way of examination in chief. I'm sure there'll be some questions put to you in cross-examination.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ranatunga.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sabahipur, can I just start by clarifying a few things? If we look at your proof of evidence, your statement at 2.4.
Could you just refer me to...
Okay, so I think what we might do is do the same thing as before. It's core document 13.
Yeah, it's right at the end.
And if we pull that out, please, and keep it separate and perhaps staple it, then you've got it to hand because there will be reference to it.
No problem. Okay, I have that ready.
Thank you. So if I just take you to 2.4, I think this is clear. I just want to clarify it. You've been the operations manager for some time, as you've outlined today as well. It's January 2025 that, for obvious reasons, because of the birth of your child, you took a step back, yes?
Yes, to be honest, in the 6 months prior to that, I was slowly phasing out my involvement. I had some pains with my pregnancy, but after that, I did take a more formal step back.
Yeah, for obvious, understandable reasons.
Thank you.
But just so I understand it, it's Danielle Morrison is who was taking over sort of day-to-day control from then on. Is that fair?
Yes, but she would always report into us.
Yeah. No, that's helpful, and your statement says that. Just in terms of how that's reflected and more generally, we've had a lot of reference to documents and correspondence and everything else, and some of it's from your father, some of it's from James Gran, some of it's from your brother. I don't think, am I right, broadly, we don't have correspondence from you, probably for that reason. Is that fair?
I think they've got it covered, yes.
Yeah. And so part of that is because your involvement was sort of lessened because of your family commitments. Is that fair?
But also because I think they've mentioned everything, that there wasn't anything different for me to mention. Like my father has said, we're a small family run business.
Yeah.
I've worked with my father for most of my professional life.
Yeah.
And so when we write something, we work on it together. When we operate the business, we've always been in hospitality, so we work on it together. So
Sure. But I mean, just to be really clear then,
But my
the
specific name
PCN
could be
responses
yes.
are in your father's name.
Yeah, they were addressed to him.
Yeah, and they don't say, as instructed by my daughter or anything like that. Your name isn't on the documents in
It's
the
not.
way that others are. Yeah, thank you. And in terms of aspects since Danielle Morrison's been more involved day to day, but with your oversight, right? The fire safety situation is something that you're aware of.
Somewhat.
Say that again.
Somewhat, yes. We've only
Yeah.
received that recently, haven't we?
Can I just understand that through you then? If we go to Sam Priest's statement, that's NHC 41.
I've got NHC 25. Is that? I think it's this one, Simon, now. Thank you. Fire safety officer witness statement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I just check? Is that something you've seen, or is it the first time you're looking at it?
No, it's not the first time I'm looking at it, but like I said, we've only received it recently.
Yeah.
Like yesterday.
So the statement was received 4 weeks ago. The emails that related to the statement was yesterday.
Okay.
Is that something you're aware of or not?
I've looked at this yesterday, but that's no problem.
Okay. So this refers to a visit on the 27th of April, 2026, paragraph 3.
Yes.
And you weren't there, but Danielle Morrison was, as
Yeah.
was your father. Yeah. This is obviously, whilst we've got this appeal ongoing, and the position in the appeal papers, is that this is self-contained residential units.
Yes, that's what we've been
Yeah.
told.
So against that background, can you see what Sam Priest says at paragraph 7? During conversations with Mr. Sabahipur, he said words to the effect that the premises operated as a long stay hotel.
Yes.
And if I just, from there, please, just go to the emails. So that's NHC 41A. Now, I don't think that will be printed. Have we got a printed copy of NHC?
No, it goes
41A?
from 40 to 42.
Yeah, so we had copies of the emails printed, I believe.
Is it? It goes from 40 to 42, Simon. You can read it out, Mr. Anatunga, if
Yeah,
you like. I don't
Okay.
mind.
No, that's helpful. If I read it out and if I take it unfairly, you'll be
That's it.
re-examined on it. We put in the 3 emails.
Oh, we've got it.
Oh, you've
Thank
got
you.
it. Perfect. The 3 emails that are there, okay. Again, I don't want to take you by surprise. You've seen the emails yesterday?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. They are between Sam Priest and HRS1, but effectively Danielle.
Yes.
Yeah.
On our behalf.
Thank you. And what she says, if we go to the last one first, 29th of April, 2026. As you're aware,
Yes.
Dealing with hotel apartments may change, yeah? So she flags that. See that second paragraph down?
As you are dealing with hotel apartments may change.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Dependent on the council's decision. Do you see
Yeah.
that? Yeah. And then you've got the second email. So there's correspondence about that following the visit.
Mhm.
Okay. Then you've got the second email. If you go to that one, which is Wednesday, the 6th of May.
Yes.
And this is Sam Priest's email following the visit.
Mhm.
And if you look at the second paragraph, as mentioned above, our inspection and letter covers the current setup in the premises, operating as a long-term hotel.
Yes.
Do you see that? So it's plain, isn't it, from both his witness statement, but also from the documents, that what he was being told, 27th of April 2026, is that this was a long-term, long-stay hotel. Yes?
That's what we understood it to be.
Even during the appeal period,
That's
when
what we
you've lodged an appeal on the basis that what you have is self-contained residential dwellings?
That's what we understood it to be for years. So since 2021 until I think 2025, when we were told otherwise. So the fact that some of the historical language and historical references that we may have used, I imagine that's understandable. Factually, our operation has remained exactly the same since COVID.
But do you see why I'm asking the question? You know, the way you've just put it, but
Mhm.
also your father's put it, is until the council decided,
Mhm.
we've always said it's a long stay hotel or long term hotel. Right?
Exactly.
And that tells me that once the council, the way you've put it, I don't say I agree with it, but what you're saying is once the council decided it was something else, you've run with that, which is why we have the appeal we've got. Yes, that's my understanding.
Or we would assume that the council,
Yeah.
being qualified professionals that they are,
Yeah.
would have a better understanding of planning classification than we would.
So why would you revert, right, on the 27th of April 2026 to describing it as a long-term hotel?
Most likely it was just a slip up, Mr. Ranatunga, but it's in line with everything that we've said this whole time. And the understanding of the planning classification of this situation is complicated. There are shared characteristics between a hotel
Mhm.
and a residential dwelling, as the LPA have mentioned themselves, and we agree. But
So
the
I've got
factual operation of a
most
business
likely-
has been unchanged.
Most likely just a slip up.
That's how we've described it since the beginning.
Okay, because the effect of that it is this, isn't it? If you look at Mr. Priest's statement, there's a difference, isn't there, between fire safety? I mean, I'm not a fire
don't know.
safety expert. Okay, well, let's look at it together then. If
Okay.
you look at paragraph 11.
Yes. Sorry, which document?
So
The
Sam Priest's statement.
Yep, I've got it.
We discussed with Mr. Sabahipur, if this premises is to be used as self-contained flats instead of long-stay hotel rooms, any alterations to the building should be made through building control to ensure building regulations are complied with. This includes part B, which is fire safety. We explained the difference, okay? A hotel will operate full simultaneous evacuation strategy. This means all occupants in the building are expected to evacuate immediately upon activation of the fire alarm. Flats, on the other hand, will typically operate a stay put strategy, which means if there's a fire in the flat, it should not alert the rest of the building, and only those in the flat of the fire origin should evacuate. And then if you just look at the penultimate bullet point there, the above stay put strategy, you're familiar with that, right? Would also mean each flat has 60 minutes fire compartmentation.
Yes.
The walls, floors, and ceiling must be constructed for 60-minute fire resistance to allow this type of evacuation strategy to be suitable. A compartmentation survey may be required to confirm levels of compartmentation. So you can see there that Mr. Priest has explained there's differences between how fire safety is approached if it's hotel use and if it's flats, yes? And if it's flats, there's a requirement for each of the individual flats to be fire resistant for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Because of the stay put strategy. Yeah. So if I put it to you this way, do you see the point that there's a more onerous aspect to fire safety because of the stay put strategy if you have individual flats? Yes. Do you see that?
Yes.
So the effect of you making what you call a slip in characterizing the building as long-term or long-stay hotels is that you have less onerous requirements for fire safety purposes, isn't it?
Well, as we've gone over several times, we were only informed that the local council is classing the George as residential use in November 2025. And if it is to be that is the classification of our building, then we'll do everything that we need to keep it in line with the regulations, of course.
Yes, you enter an appeal where you say a number of times and very clearly that you say what you've been doing is self-contained residential dwellings. And then after lodging that appeal, when fire safety inspectors arrive on the 27th of April 2026, you change back to telling them that it's a long-stay hotel for fire safety purposes.
To be honest, Mr. Ranatunga, we're operating a hotel apartment. So factually, the business has remained unchanged. People stay with us a number of months. Some people extend. We have kitchenettes within the rooms. Those facts are consistent throughout. Now, whether you wish in planning terms to classify them as one thing or another, and just to remind you, the council has changed their mind in the no breach letter that we received in 2024, and then in November 2025, when they classified exactly the same thing as something different, we can't be accountable for. We're only here to listen and abide by what the local council tells us to do.
Councillor Willoughby gave evidence this morning that you've changed whenever it becomes convenient to do so. This is an example of that, isn't it? When it's convenient for you to refer to the premises as a long stay hotel for fire safety purposes, that's what you say.
I think that would be an interesting reading of what we've said so far, because we've consistently said from February 2021 that we are a longer stay hotel model.
Until you lodged an appeal from when you've consistently said these are single residential flats.
An appeal
So-
following the council letter
Yeah.
in November 2025 that
Yeah.
said that's what we are.
And
So
you've
who are
said-
we then to argue against that?
And yes, and you've said not qualified, leave that to the council,
Which is
except
true.
when the fire safety inspectors come round.
The fire
Is that
safety
is that how
inspector.
it looks?
The conversations that the fire safety inspector is referring to are not formal documents. They are not emails. They're not things that we've laboriously spent a lot of time putting together. They're informal conversations to give them an idea of how long people stay in the rooms. So we've given them the information that we felt was accurate at the time. Everything else so far has been consistent.
Can I just look at paragraph 3.1 of your statement next?
Of my
please?
statement, yes.
Which says the 17 units are self-contained.
Mhm.
And it says each unit is occupied by one household and they have exclusive use. Do I understand that to mean they have what's called exclusive possession?
No. Sorry, can you define exclusive possession? I'm not sure I follow if that
It
means something
that
else.
You don't have the right to go in without giving them notice, if I put it broadly.
No more so than you would in a hotel room. When we had guests in a hotel room, we wouldn't just walk into their room. We'd ask them if we're able to come in. We'd knock. We'd say housekeeping. We'd give them some notice.
It is regular, isn't it, in hotel rooms for service personnel and others. And if there was some issue, let's say with a water leak or emergency, or
Maintenance
for other
issue.
reasons, it is normal not to give notice, isn't it, in a hotel, which is quite different from terms of tenancy agreements, which say 48 hours notice and give a proper period of notice when people have what's known as a tenancy.
With
Is that something
regard
you're
to
familiar with or not?
with regards to maintenance elements, we've operated exactly the same as we have when there's a hotel. We would not walk in on someone's private room with no notice or anything like that. In the same respect, if anyone drew our attention to any maintenance related issues, which I have to be honest, the way we attend to maintenance issues is really, really quickly. So we were still operating as if we were a hotel. I've stayed in flats where if you have a maintenance issue, you've got to wait, a week or something for someone to come. We've been there within 24 hours, 48 hours, as soon as we can to get things sorted. And sometimes tenants will say to us, if it's a leak or something urgent, like you said, that we're able to come in, but we would not just walk in on someone's private room.
So they don't have exclusive possession, or they do? What was your position?
I've explained to you. I don't want to say the incorrect terminology if I don't follow exactly what your definition of that is.
Okay, so just 3.1.
Mhm.
If you look at what you say, they have exclusive use of the unit.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that?
That they're the only people there. There's no one else there.
Oh, just that there's no one else who can use it.
Yes.
Okay.
So once a room is occupied by someone, that it's occupied only by that person.
Can I clarify this next? 4.1, you've
Mhm.
got these 3 residents who've been there, you say,
Yes.
for 5 years.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying of those, you're aware of one of them that has another address?
Yes. I'm aware of
The
one of
others you
them.
can't speak of.
I can't. No, that's true.
Yeah. So it follows, doesn't it? It's possible that those other 2 don't have another address. This is their permanent residency.
But it could also be possible that it's not.
But I'm correct, aren't I? That's the answer to my question. Both are possible.
Both are possible.
Thank you. Then in terms of the length of stay,
Mhm.
right? If you look at 4.3 and 4.4 of your proof,
Oh, my proof. Okay.
you've got, just to clarify, no, you don't accept single night bookings.
No, we don't. No. To
And
be
has that
honest,
been the case throughout or post-COVID or
Post-
since when?
post-COVID, Mr. Anatunga, as we've explained, prior to COVID, we were a traditional hotel as you would class us. So we had nightly stays, we had housekeeping every day, exactly how you'd expect. Following COVID, we were not able to economically keep up with that because of the local budget hotels that were allowed into the area, that we couldn't compete with price wise because of the effects of COVID that put a strenuous amount of additional hygiene measures and staffing costs that we needed to do. And because we had a lot of staff that went back home to various other countries within Europe. So we weren't able to compete as a business. This was the only viable option for our business to be able to operate and serve the same clientele that we had previously.
So you also say, am I right? The position is not originally, but now the minimum period is 1 month.
It is, yeah.
And then if you look at 4.4,
Mhm.
you refer to your brother's correspondence,
Yes.
saying that usually they fall between 2 weeks and 3 months.
Yes.
Yeah. And you say that your brother's description, based on what I'd told him about the property was operated,
Mhm.
reflected a range of actual stays. Yeah.
Exactly, because as I said, we have a 1 month minimum,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that people stay for a full month. So sometimes people will book a month and then whatever reason, so a lot of times when people will come to us, it will be that they're in between places or they're working at a specific place. So potentially they're between house moves and their house becomes available or something to that effect,
Yeah.
that they actually end up staying less than a month.
Yes. So the minimum commitment is for 1 month.
Exactly.
Yeah. But in terms of actual occupation, it might be 2 weeks or less.
And because we don't see them as regularly, yes, so it could be 2 weeks or less.
Yeah. So that means that the document in those circumstances would show 1 month,
Mhm.
but the actual occupation might be half or 1 week.
Exactly.
Thank you. And I'm right in saying that what you rely upon to say that is the documents, the tenancy bundle and the other documents that you have, yeah?
Yes.
What I mean by that is, with the best word, you're not there every day to see who's in the building. And everything else.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you rely on the documents. Thank you. So just in terms of your spreadsheet that you took us to, and that's core document 3.10.
That really shouldn't have. 14. Should be. Thank you. Yes, I've got it.
You took us through that from the documents, and then
Mhm.
you've explained the documents to me, which is helpful. But if you just look at length of stay, so we've got a position where it's minimum 1 month, and your brother's saying 2 weeks to 3 months
Mhm.
reflects the range of actual stays, okay? Because they might book for a month but only stay for 2 weeks. And then if we look at your length of stay
Yeah.
table at the bottom, so we can see from your analysis from the documents from 2021 through to 2026, but not the full period, yeah?
Mhm.
Am I right in saying there's only 2 lengths of stay that have been less than 3 months?
On average. But just because the minimum commitment is 1 month doesn't mean that people aren't entitled to extend their stay.
Yeah, but the other point is this is all based on the agreements. Yeah, the actual stay is not something that you can directly comment on. That's just what happens. Someone might book for a month but stay for less.
Exactly like when we were a hotel.
Thank you. can I just pick up with you paragraph 7.1? Paragraph 7.1.
Of my statement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Flat 20,
Mhm.
there's no records on the spreadsheet you provide for 2021 to 2023 for flat 20, are there, I think?
Or no.
So what you've provided there is your understanding about staff workers and everything else.
Yes.
That's without the support of any documents?
Yes, because it was more so informal agreements.
Yeah.
So we have some staff that would say on-site accommodation.
Thank you. And then just one other point on your statement, paragraph 8.6. In terms of access,
Yes.
you've obtained the express consent of the occupant in advance. Right?
Exactly.
And then I'm interested in the way you put it, Ms. Sabahipour. That is the normal practice in any building of this kind, right? You don't say hotel or self-contained dwelling. I might see it if it was a self-contained dwelling with a tenancy under an assured short-hold tenancy. But in a
Regardless of the-
hotel, that's what I want to just be really clear about this.
Mhm.
You don't have to give the same notice as you do for a tenant in under an assured short-hold tenancy, do you? Or is that not something you're familiar
I
with?
can only tell you how we've been operating, and we've been giving them the exact same degree of respect and privacy that we would to any hotel guest.
Why do you say in any building of this kind? What does that mean?
It's
What
a-
do you mean by that?
It's a building, is it not?
So whether it's a hotel or it's a self-contained residential dwelling, it's the same approach?
We've been operating as a hotel apartment, exactly the same since 2021.
Okay. What you do give direct evidence of is the visits that were made by officers?
Yes, I was present.
And there were 4 visits, yes, which
Yes.
you refer to on page 5 of your statement. So actually, if we take it up from the bottom of page 4,
Okay.
14th of April 2025, yeah?
Yeah.
There was no access given, was there?
14th of April
individual visits?
2025. That was the initial visit.
Yeah,
And that's where we had Christella and Simon come to see us.
yeah.
To be honest, we were a bit confused what the visit was with regards to.
Mhm.
We hadn't been given any notice that they would need to see any bedrooms. Otherwise, we would have organised that as we have for all the other visits. We just knew that they were coming from the council and they wanted to see our building. We spent most of the time, to be honest, looking at the downstairs restaurant units that were unoccupied. So we were frankly very confused what the point of it all was. Then we did take them upstairs, and when they explained to us they do need to see rooms, we told them this is something we have to organise with our guests. To be honest, they were very pleasant, and they said that's no problem at all, and they were happy to work with us to let them know when we had availability for them to see our rooms.
You could not, in those circumstances. I mean, officers have attended as part of a enforcement or planning breach investigation, right? You couldn't have even opened a door for them to look in to see what was in a room from outside.
As a long-standing hotelier, I would never walk into someone's room and disrespect their privacy like that with no notice at all. That's never. I would never be able to do that. So we would like notice. And furthermore, like I said, we had truly no idea what the visit was in respect to, because most of the time we spent in the derelict downstairs that was in a state of like building site.
Are you saying that in April 2025, so this is after a planning committee, were you aware of the planning committee and what happened at the planning committee and
Yes,
the
I was
councillors'
aware.
questions,
Yes.
concerns about whether this was operating as a hotel
Yeah.
as they normally understood? There was no inkling between you and your brother that that's what the officers would want to look in the rooms?
No, if they'd asked to look in the rooms, we absolutely would have been accommodating as we had every other time. We showed them around the building, we showed them the communal areas. There was no indication prior to their visit that they would like to see inside individual rooms. Otherwise, we would have accommodated as we have done.
There'd been a planning contravention notice asking about the basis on which occupants occupied rooms? None of that gave you a little idea that
We
they
would be
might want to
happy
look
to-
inside the rooms?
We
for
would have been
specific
happy
support?
we were happy to explain all of that as we have consistently since April 2022. Had the officers have wanted to see the rooms, we would have let them into the rooms, but we would have to organise that with prior consent to our guests because we respect them.
8th of May 2025,
Mhm.
what you say, in fairness to you, is to the best of my recollection at this visit, we showed the communal areas of the building and one of the guest rooms.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the next. That's 8.3, correct?
Yeah. So that was 8th of May 2025.
Yes.
And what we have is Mr. Curling's photographs. So that can confirm what the best of your recollection is.
Okay.
If we just have a look, please, at NHC 33.
NHC 33. Okay. Do I need to go back to this document, the tenancy report?
The tenancy report.
Should I
No.
get it out? I'm saying
No, not that
Okay.
one. NHC 33.
Yes.
So this is now on notice. You knew they were coming, yes?
Exactly.
And you showed them what we can see. So do you have the photograph? Yeah. And we can see a room without any sort of personal effects or anything in it. It looks as it looks, and we can see it there. The inspector will make his own mind up of what it shows. Yes. With
So
the
this is
kitchenette.
the room in between people staying. So
Yeah.
where, as we mentioned to the council, we have a lot of people staying. We're very busy. We have a waiting list, and we said that we let them know when we have someone leaving, and we can show them a room, which they were happy with at the time. So this is once we've done a deep clean before the next person goes in. That's what these images are depicting.
Yeah. Okay. And that says, you can see at the top of Mr. Curling's exhibit, photos of room 8, yeah?
Yes.
If we then go to the next one, so that was 17th of July 2025. Now, on that occasion, you say rooms 4 and 10 were shown, yes?
Yeah.
And we have that at NHC 5. So we've got Mr. Curling's photographs from that
NHC.
occasion.
5. Okay. Oh, these are big ones. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a similar idea. You can see rooms which are sort of cleaned, is that right? Or they're
Similar idea,
free?
but this is pictures of a room whilst it's in use from one of our guests. So where the council wanted to see more rooms, we didn't have a gap in our occupancy because we've had people in and out constantly. It's been continuous occupation ever since. We asked some of our guests whether they'd be able to grant us permission to show their rooms to the inspectors, and this particular tenant agreed to do so.
Thank you. And then you've got, so that's the July visit.
Mhm.
And then in October, 9th of October 2025, at this visit, we showed him the newly completed reception and laundry room and rooms 6 and 11.
Mhm.
So Mr. Curling will say he didn't see inside rooms 6 and 11 on that occasion. In fact, he didn't see inside any of the hotel rooms on that occasion, what we're calling hotels, I think. So is there anything you can help to demonstrate that you're right and he's wrong?
No, we showed him inside the rooms. All I did was open the door and let Simon go in there.
Okay.
A lot of the times he wanted us to stay out because he was taking very accurate measurements and he didn't want our presence to disturb the accuracy
Okay.
of the measurements or the photographs. So I wasn't in the room.
Well,
a
if
lot
you
of the
were on
time.
okay, but what you've said to me very carefully is that the way you operate your business is you would give notice to individual tenants. So have
We
you got
would.
the emails where you gave notice?
I don't
Any
know at the moment.
documents of notice? Have you got any of that to demonstrate that point?
If you, I can probably look to send it to you afterwards, but I don't at present have any documents.
Okay, well, he will say that he didn't go in those rooms, and that's just between you and him.
Okay.
Neither of you, you don't produce anything to do it. But what he does have, you see,
Mhm.
is he's produced photographs on those rooms that he did go into. We've gone through those.
Do you want us to look at
previous
those?
visits? Yeah, we've been through them.
Oh,
Don't need to go
that's
through them
it.
again.
Okay, fine.
But there aren't any for 6 and 11. But be that as it may,
Okay.
those are the photos and access that we have, and there's a difference between you on that visit. What we then get with the appeal is photographs of the flats. Can you look at the statement of case, please, which is core document 9?
Is that this one?
Yeah. And if you go to page 14, I think, of that one.
Page 14. Yep.
If we look at, in fact, start with page 15, page
Okay.
15. And that is a photograph of flat 11, which is said to be a bedroom.
Mhm.
And can you just help me with that? I can see what looks like personalized bedding.
Yes.
I can see what looks like children's toys on the shelves.
Yes.
And if we just look at that from a different angle, can I just keep that open?
Mhm.
Okay. And if we go to NHC 48, please, NHC 48.
NHC 48. Yes.
So can we just, through you, just be clear, that's the same room from a different angle?
Very
Yeah,
similar.
seen the bedding, seen the cuddly toys on the
Yes.
shelves. Just look at the walls for me. I mean, they've been redacted, but you can see, can't you, what looks to be family photo frames on a wall.
Mhm.
Some looks like someone in a school uniform, for example, and to the right of the door, 3 photos on frames. Does that look right?
Yes.
What you've provided on the appeal
Mhm.
is quite different, isn't it? It looks much more like a residential flat than the photos you provided when you gave access on notice to officers previously.
This is probably one of the only people staying that has a young child that comes to visit him from time to time. It's a longer stay model. So we would have no issue with him having toys for his child in his room.
If you look at another photograph of flat 11,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at figure 12.
Figure 12 on the statement of case?
Yep. One where the TV's on.
Yes.
And behind that in the corner,
Mhm.
can you help me? In the alcove, with clothes on it, it looks like an exercise bike.
Oh, I'm not sure. I can't see it. It's quite dark and small.
Okay, well, I'm going to put it to you that that's what you can see. You can see
I truly can't verify this. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if there's a clearer picture or digitally we can zoom in or something, but I'm so sorry. I can't agree with something I can't really see.
Sure. Well, the inspector can have a look for himself and
Okay.
make his own mind up. But we can see, can't we, a difference between the rooms that you were showing officers on notice at those previous visits, all sort of clear of personal possessions and looking more like a hotel use, and what you then produce on appeal, which looks like a residential flat. Is that fair or not?
No, I would disagree. To be honest, Mr. Ranatunga, the images that we showed you initially, like I said, we were trying to work around our hotel guests, and we were trying to engineer viewings from the councillors between when we had guests that were leaving and new guests that were coming. So in that period where we've got it ready just before the new guest comes in. The second room that you showed, Mr. Culling's photos of. That wasn't tidy or prim or clean or anything. It was a little bit messy, to be honest. But that is the nature of the longer term stay. Is they can make it more comfortable for themselves. They can bring personal possessions. They can have their children's toys there.
Yeah.
That's not to say the children stay.
But the difference is when you appeal on the basis that you have self-contained residential dwellings, it's then that you reveal photographs of people who look like they're living in individual flats.
That just depends on the rooms that were available at the time.
It's just a happy coincidence, is it?
I would say the initial images are also very messy.
You ended your evidence today by saying you've made every effort to be transparent.
Yes.
Is this being transparent, what we've just looked at, the way these photos seem to show hotel use when officers are investigating an enforcement breach, and then when they've made their decision, personal effects and
I believe so.
people
'Cause
living?
if I'm looking at the same document that you are, Mr. Ranitinger, so statement of case, this one, the figure that you're drawing our attention to, figure 12, flat 11 living area looking, as you would say, a little bit more disheveled. The picture above it, flat 6, is looking more sanitized and hotel-like potentially. But it's just that those images are representing the same case, are they not?
Okay, just bear with me. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vanatonga. I don't have any further questions myself. So I'll pass you back to Mr. Bell.
Thank you, sir.
Just one question, and it's in respect of the email you were taken to appended to Mr. Priest's witness statement, and it's the one that Danielle sent initially. I just want to clarify a point. You explained that you understood the use to be a slip up, and it was put to you that you'd made that slip up. Did you have any involvement in drafting that email?
No, not at all. As I mentioned, and as Mr. Ranitenga clarified, I wasn't there that day at all. I am not Danielle. She will report to us, but she does also occasionally write emails independently.
Thank you. That's the only question I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, do I take these back? Because we don't have any otherwise.
Yeah. Good question.
I don't
Um,
want to do the wrong
Have you got copies of?
So
For the-
my witnesses will look probably at their laptops for the documents
Okay,
the way
that's
I've been.
Then yes, I can go back.
Bit
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Just while they're obviously moving those folders, it's 3:00. Obviously, before we go into the council's evidence, does anyone need a short comfort break at all?
Take 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. Is that? Yeah. Okay. The inquiry is adjourned. We'll resume at 3:05. Thank you. Okay, the time is 3:05 and the inquiry is resumed. I can see Mr. Curling is on stand, so I'll move it. I would take the affirmation. Yeah. Please repeat after me. I, followed by your full name,
I, Simon Crowley,
do solemnly,
do solemnly,
sincerely,
sincerely,
and truly declare
truly declare
and affirm
and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Curling. When you're ready, Mr. Rarotonga.
Thank you. Your name is Simon Curling, is that right?
Correct.
And you are a planning compliance officer at the council,
I am.
but you have 23 years in regulatory service in accordance with local authority legislation.
Yes, I do.
But it was in July 2024 that you joined this authority, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And we have a proof of evidence from you, which identifies that you're the case officer for the George and is part of this enforcement appeal. And you set out what you do in that statement. Can I just, I'm going to take that as read.
Correct.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to go straight to paragraph 3.8, please.
Yep.
Which is where you provide a review of the evidence submitted by the appellant for the appeal. Yeah. And we're just going to cover a few of those points. But just in terms, firstly, of the scope of your evidence, am I right saying you're dealing with the ground D appeal and the evidence and you've reviewed it and you're the case officer? In terms of deliberate concealment, that's Christella Menson, is that right?
Correct.
All right, thank you. If we just start with this, please. In terms of the documents submitted with the appeal, but also with proofs of evidence, are those documents that you've reviewed?
They are.
Okay. And what we have here is the results of your review. I just want to just pick off a few of the points, if I may. Firstly, in terms of the tenancy agreements that have been provided, you mention a specific point about those and signatures at 3.11. Do you want to just help us with that?
Yeah, so there was I've identified top 5 tenancy agreements where there's basically no signatures on them, and they are CD 3.311, 316, 324.
Sorry, I'm struggling to hear.
Is that? Oh, sorry. Okay. So agreements 3.311, 3.316, 3.324, 3.335, and 3.337. So I repeat, those agreements have got no signatures on.
Okay. And what do you say in relation to that then?
Well, having reviewed it, I mean, I just see it as unreliable evidence, basically.
And those are the 5 you've identified. Have you reviewed all of them?
I have, yes. So there's, just to add to that, yeah, there's 8 agreements with no room numbers on them. So they're 3.31, 3.32.
Well, to save you reading that out, is that what you've identified in 3.9? Those are the numbers?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so there's 8 with no date on. And what do you say about that?
Again, unreliable.
Okay. Anything else about tenancy agreements?
Well, there was 61 in total, which I've looked through more than once just to make sure I've covered off everything, and I've not, made any mistakes in my assessment. Now looking through them, I've made a note here that there was some missing information, so like missing tenancy agreements, and these were for rooms 1, 16, 17, and 20.
Just slow down a second. For room 1, can you take them? Room 1, which
Yeah,
one?
sorry,
Which other one?
rooms 1, 16,
Yeah.
17, and 20. So they're basically what I call long missing periods as well. So for example,
So just take it in stages. There's no tenancy agreements for those rooms, or there are some, or what?
there are tenancy agreements for each of the rooms, but there's long missing periods.
Thank you.
So for example, with room 1, I couldn't find any tenancy agreements for 2023 onwards. Although there was a name given on the spreadsheet, but I just couldn't find a tenancy agreement to corroborate.
Okay. 16, 17, 20, anything more to say about those?
Yeah, so with room 16, there were no tenancy agreements for years 21, 22, 23 and 24.
2021.
22, 23 and 24. Although the spreadsheet again provides names.
Mhm.
But then it was noted there was a hotel apartment checking form after that in 2025 dated the 6th of June. But then that didn't have a signature on either.
Mhm.
So that was room 16. For room 17, there were no tenancy agreements for 2021, 2022 and part 2023. And then with room 20, there was no record. There's no record on the spreadsheet between 2021 and 2023.
So
no,
you've
no agreements for that period either.
so you've been in the room and heard the evidence, all right,
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
The appellant relies upon the documents, okay, and you've looked at the documents. What does the position on tenancy agreements tell you? Is there a continuous period of what can you say about
Well,
continuous period of
there's gaps in occupancy, which doesn't support the 4-year continuous claim of residential, self-contained residential use.
Thank you. A number of invoices have been produced as well. Are you familiar with those? Just help us with those.
The bank statements, you mean?
Yes, sorry,
Yeah, the
bank
bank
statements.
statements, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I mean, looking through them all, I can't find where they make reference to the George. I mean, I know up to November 2023, they was being paid, or they were addressed in the name of Templars Property Management with a different address.
Just slow down a second.
Sorry. Yeah, the bank statements going up to November 2023 were being addressed to Templars Property Management at a different away address, but I couldn't see any information that would make reference on there to the George.
So they're documents put forward as showing payments made for rent, if you like. But what you say is there's nothing that links them to the George. Is that right? Up to, did you say November 2023?
2023.
Thank you. Anything else to say about bank statements?
I found some gaps where payments were missing. For example, I mean, I've not gone through every single one, but yeah, picked up. I mean, whether someone vacated or there was a missed payment, you know, not paid rent for a month, but it doesn't support the claim basically of 4 years.
If you pull the other microphone towards you as well, then you've got two.
Is that better?
Thank you. So there's some gaps where payments are missing. It could be because people vacated or there's a missed payment, but it doesn't support the claim. Yeah. Okay. And then one point that came up was in relation to NHC3, which was the planning contravention notice response. And the response was from March 2025. If you've been in the room, you've heard the evidence for Mr. Sahabpour. Under F, there was reference to the question, are the terms of occupation subject to any tenancy or license agreements? And if you recall, there were questions about whether it refers to tenancies. What it does refer to is check-in forms. Yeah. What do you want to say about that as an answer and whether it's full and frank?
Yeah, I mean, in response to that, I mean, having reviewed when the PCN was actually returned, compared with what they had in operation at that time, I mean, there was only 2 hotel style agreements in place at that time.
So just take that slowly.
So
Having reviewed when it was returned, so when it
Yeah.
was returned, the date is
March,
20th of March 2025.
correct?
You've reviewed the actual guest check-in agreements, have you?
Yes.
And just help us with what the evidence is.
So just bear with me. Right. Okay. Well,
Sorry, you're going ahead of me. I think what you'd said, I just want to be clear, is there were only 2 guest check-ins
yeah.
in
I mean,
existence at that time.
the whole period there was 8. I've counted 8. We've received 8 hotel style agreements, but at that time when that question was answered in the March PCN, there was only 2 hotel style agreements in place.
And can you give us the references for those?
On them. So it's CD 3.348 and
Hold on, CD 3.3.48, is it?
3.48. Yep.
Yep.
And CD 3.354.
3.54.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
3.3.54. Yep. Thank you. Okay. So the answers given. The answers given in a planning contravention notice response asking for whether the terms of occupation are subject to any tenancy or license agreements, right? And the references to check-in forms. What does your evidence tell us, please? What do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, reviewing that answer, I mean, it comes across now as imprecise based on the information that we've been given since. You know, if there was only 2 hotel style agreements in place at that time,
Yeah.
then why was the question answered and it only made reference to a hotel style agreement? Why did it not make reference, as you asked earlier, about tenancy agreements, which would have been more appropriate because there was a lot more tenancy agreements in place at that time?
Thank you. Then I think just a couple of other things. Going back to your proof, 3.13, you deal with the photographs of flat 11, which was submitted with the appeal. We've had reference to them.
Mm.
Do you just want to give your take on what you can see in the photographs of flat 11? We've been to them, so we've seen them.
Sure.
The inspector will know the reference, which is in HC 48.
Yeah, I mean,
But there was reference to, for example, an exercise bike.
yes,
What do you say?
yes. I mean, they certainly look more homely. The photos, you know, in the appeal statement. When I looked at the rooms, I think 1 or maybe 2 of them was empty or unoccupied. It was a bit difficult to say at the time. I know 1 was definitely occupied, but the rooms that we've seen as part of the appeal, they obviously look more homely, you know, more settled, where people are staying there for a longer period of time. Had I seen a room like, you know, was shown at that time, then obviously we might have come to a different review at that time and might have pursued it a bit further. I mean, as mentioned, when we visited in April, we did request to see, you know, a lot of rooms. I would describe.
That was on the first visit.
That was on the first visit, yeah, when we made that request, you know, that we would like to see, you know, a lot more rooms. And it was left with the appellant to get back to us when rooms would become available, which, you know, they did accommodate when a room become available on 3 occasions. But as I say, had I seen a room as shown in the appeal statement, then yeah, that would have formed a different view at that time and something that we would have pursued further.
Yeah.
Even though we still wanted to explore the use further, which we did because we'd done more visits, but would have surely helped with our assessment at that time had we seen more rooms.
Can I just check this one with you? There was discussion about whether you had access to rooms 6 and 11 on the one of the visits, and
Yeah, I mean,
Mrs. some people said no.
I mean,
Just
I've got
tell me.
no reason to hide any information, of course. You know, the more rooms I would have seen, the better, of course. You know, I did make notes after every visit, like we do. You know, I always take photos as well, and I checked my records, you know, to make sure I didn't make a mistake. And I did visit the rooms, but I couldn't find any log at all. What I would say is the purpose of my visit in October was when I received notification at the end of September that refurbishment works had finished in the reception and in one of the laundry rooms. So the purpose of my visit at that time in October was to basically look at the finished works, because what can be a challenge for us is when we are doing an investigation, looking at areas when there's works taking place. So that's partly as well why it made this investigation was going on for a little while, and obviously I know the appellant wanted, you know, was chasing and wanted us to come to our conclusion a lot sooner. But yeah, part of that was because of the works taking place. So as I say, the reason for the October visit was to inspect the works.
Thank you.
And there was no like prior agreement made to visit any of the rooms.
Thank you. And then what do you want to say about the council tax position and the valuation office?
I mean, yeah, okay. So with regard to the council tax
So
position,
just to
sure.
fix it, you mentioned this in 3.10 of your proof.
Yes.
Okay, but is there anything else you want to say about it?
It obviously doesn't support the claim
In what way?
in this appeal. There's continuous 4 years as self-contained residential flats. You know, it places even more doubt in my mind
Sorry, what does?
with the absence of non-payment of council tax,
Yeah.
which obviously you would expect in a residential dwelling.
Sorry, and how does that relate to the agreements that you've seen? Who's responsible for that and why?
Yeah, I mean, on the tenancy agreement, it does say about the utilities that the landlord responsible for paying them. But what's included is it makes reference to council tax. So when someone's occupying a room, their understanding, reading their legally binding agreement, is that their rent is being paid towards the gas and electric, and also the council tax, as you would expect in any flat.
Thank you. And anything on valuation office? Did you want to say anything about that? Business rates or?
I mean, there's not been any business rates paid for a period of time either. That's, you know, it's been taken out of the rating list. It was done in June 24.
So what?
So on the basis they've not been paying at all, I mean, normally you pay either one or the other, council tax or business rates. So if it was a hotel over 4 years, then you'd expect to see business rates
Thank you.
being paid.
All right. Finally, you've been in the room, you've heard all the evidence. Is there anything that you've heard that's changed your views as set out in your proof and you've explained to us today?
No.
Thank
No.
you. Those are my questions in examination in chief.
Thank you, Mr. Vanatonga. I'm sure Mr. Bell will have some questions for you now, Mr. Curling.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Curling. Your proof of evidence is mercifully short in a planning inquiry where we only have a day, so I'm going to try and get through this quite quickly.
Mhm.
I want to turn first of all to your introduction to your proof, and it's in respect of your role within the council. So you've been a planning compliance officer with North Hert since July 2024. And have you been a planning compliance officer for 23 years in total in other authorities?
No, I haven't.
So in terms of 23 years providing a regulatory service in accordance with legislation, which is quite a strange way of describing a role, what roles were you playing during those 23 years?
I've been working for other responsible authorities in local councils.
I
Yeah,
understand
which
it's what roles within those councils?
concerning environmental health,
Environmental health,
licensing,
licensing,
business rates.
business rates.
Yeah. And that's
So when was your first role as a planning compliance officer?
July 24.
July 24. Now, it's right to say that not all of those disciplines are the same, are they? They're not all the same role. They deal with different areas of legislation,
Correct.
different considerations.
Yep.
So in effect, you've got what, coming up to 2 years worth of experience as a planning compliance officer. Have you ever dealt with a site like this before
Yes.
with exactly the same issues?
Not the same issues, no, but on a large scale basis, yes.
And is it right, as has been said at various points, that when you're looking at an apart hotel, say, model, there are some shared characteristics with a residential flat? And in this case, I think your conclusion that this isn't an apart hotel relies on the long-term nature of the bookings and the personalization. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you say distinguishes this from an apart hotel?
From what, as a dwelling? Yeah, so I mean, for example, I mean, if we're looking at a hotel, then we're looking at more shorter term stays, and it's described as more of a transient nature.
Yeah.
Whereas when we're looking at dwellings, it's fundamentally completely different, and it's obviously more on the longer term, which is what we established in this case.
And can you see that in respect of, should we say, the everyday man on the street, the distinction between the two might be fairly limited?
I mean, there are similarities, as we've already covered today, in terms of what's on offer inside in a hotel room and what's offered inside a self-contained dwelling. You know, they can contain the same facilities, like in this case, kitchenettes. But obviously, the issue with the council in this case was we wanted to explore the use, which, as I said before, is fundamentally different.
So, and as you heard from our opening, and as is quite clear from the statement of common ground, this bill turns on the facts.
Yes.
Effectively.
Fact and degree, yes.
Now, there are other areas, just to take an example, where the man on the street may not appreciate the distinction between them, and appreciating that you haven't been in the role that long, but I just want to kind of test a scenario with you. So you have a piece of agricultural land, say, and someone is keeping horses on that land. Strictly speaking, that's not a lawful use, is it, of the agricultural land? Because it's equestrian.
Right, okay.
But that's a distinction that would probably be better known to planners with experience of that than the man on the street. Now, it's right to say that throughout this, until the point of time at which the letter went out in November saying, we think this is flats, the appellant has maintained that it was a hotel use. And that position changes after the enforcement notice is issued. I mean, we've seen even up until the point where you send an email, and this is in, I think it's NHC 9, which is the correspondence between you and Mr. Gran.
Yep, I've got it.
So if we don't need to go through the whole email chain. If we go to your email of the 9th of December, which is the second email in the chain, here you're obviously, and we'll come on to this in a minute, explaining about contact with guests. And then you conclude, I can clarify that it remains the council's intention to serve an enforcement notice, and I'm working towards submitting the reports for approval this week. So this is you saying, and there's correspondence before this, but this is you saying at that point in time, we've reached the point of no return, we're enforcing. And then we have Mr. Gran's email, the 9th of December, sent after hours, but shortly after your email was sent. You have Mr. Gran, on behalf of the appellant, still seeking to regularize this through an apart hotel. Now that is a continuation of the position that the appellants had throughout, isn't it? So your criticism, as I understand it now, in respect of the conduct of this appeal, is having been served with an enforcement notice that says this meets the definition of flats, the appellant has now appealed on the basis, effectively, well, if the council says it's flats, and that's what they're saying the use is, we say, well, actually, we have the evidence to say it's been used as flats. So your criticism is that's an inappropriate way to effectively appeal this enforcement notice.
Right, okay.
Is that right?
So can you just repeat that last part? Sorry, can you direct me where
I'll
I've
put it slightly differently.
Yeah, please.
Faced with an enforcement notice that says these are flats.
Yeah. Okay.
And faced with evidence that, although phrased as being an apart hotel, tends to agree with your classification that they are flats.
Mm.
It's not wrong for the appellant to then appeal on ground D, in effect saying, we didn't understand this to be the same as flats, but we accept the council's categorization. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
Okay. Well, what I would say in response, okay, is especially on the back of where the appellant's claiming that we don't want to work with them, okay, or work to resolve the situation. The situation went like this, okay. We served on receipt of the second PCN in December, okay. With the information provided to us, okay, it helped us determine that there was a material change of use, okay, to self-contained flats, and we decided that on the balance of probability as a matter of fact and degree, and then having taken everything into consideration, we decided it was expedient to serve the enforcement notice. So when we was being asked in emails if we can work together and if we can keep the retention of the current hotel model or apply for planning permission, it was described as well in one email from Mr. Gran. At that time, we decided it was expedient. It didn't. It was contrary to
I think it's
local.
fair to say there's been no challenge to the expediency of the decision.
No.
The nature of the decision, which has then led to this appeal being brought on the basis it has been brought, and that's what we're picking through today.
So when we sent the November letter confirming, we will be sending an enforcement notice, it did say in that letter as well that we disagree, in other words, but there is the option, if you want to apply for planning permission, then you can take that option up with the planning inspector on receipt of a notice, and they can make that independent decision.
And you appreciate that Mr. Gran's correspondence offering an appeal was, sorry, not an appeal, a planning application was predicated on the fact that if we do this, there would be no need for an enforcement notice. I mean, you could have gone for an enforcement notice afterwards. On the basis it would be regularized in the way the appellant wanted it to be regularized, i.e. planning permission could be granted for an apart hotel. So effectively a hotel with conditions on it. Why wasn't that an acceptable way to resolve this?
Was that an acceptable way? I mean, after the letter on the 4th of November, I mean, the appellant, we're not going to refuse. I think it was described that we was going to refuse a planning application. We don't refuse applications, as you well know. I mean, it's up to them within their right to submit one. And if one is received, our colleagues in DM will consider it, of course.
Planning applications take time and money.
Sure.
An appeal against an enforcement notice takes time and money. And an appeal where, if the appeal wasn't made, the result is the kitchenettes have to effectively come out, don't they? Only for a planning application to go in to say, put the kitchenettes back in. So can you see why an appellant faced with these alternatives might choose to focus on the appeal first?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Now, in respect of your analysis and your proof of evidence, you focus very much on the documentary analysis. So you've gone through, you've looked at that, but you haven't really taken into account any of the evidence given by way of an account. So we're here today to deal with the evidence. It's not just the papers, is it? It's the explanation that's put forward and the amplification on this. So the inspector is not looking at this all in isolation. And you've heard what the appellant and his daughter have said about the use of the property. You've heard that the council was made aware of the kitchenettes earlier on, 2022. The council's been aware of that. And that seems to be the thing that has sparked a bit of interest later on. Is that right?
That is right, yes.
And so it doesn't really assist the inspector to have almost a partial analysis of the evidence on your behalf. You've gone through saying non-dated tenancy agreements, non-payment of council tax, etc. Okay. One of the points that you've obviously raised is this issue about the undated, unsigned, and some missing tenancy agreements. And you heard what Nasli had to say about that in respect of, well, there was an issue with record keeping. It was some materials on a Google Drive. They weren't able to recover everything. That's plausible, isn't it?
There's still unreliable evidence before us now.
And your point in respect of the evidence being unreliable is just viewing those pieces of evidence in isolation. So where you say there's no tenancy agreement for rooms, I think you said rooms 1, 16, 17 and 20?
Correct.
So if we go to CD 3.4.1, and these are the bank statements. And if I take you to the second page of those statements, and you've got a 29th of December entry. And there we have a payment attributed to room 17.
Correct. Yeah, I see that.
And there are later examples of room 17. The inspector can look through these. But there are later examples of payments from room 17 in there. Now, does that have any bearing on there not being a tenancy agreement?
It's a payment. It's room 17. Doesn't reference the George on there. Templars Property Management Limited.
And we've heard that.
Got the address 20 High Street. So that particular payment is again, it's unreliable. You know, it doesn't prove the use in that room at that time.
Even in the account that these bank statements have been provided as showing payments for this property.
Payments for this property.
Payments for rooms within this property.
Which property?
The George.
Where does it?
Well, this is why they were provided to you.
But if you could direct me to where it shows the George on this particular statement.
I want to ask you a point about non-payment of council tax, and this is where your previous discipline comes into use. A hotel is a commercial property. Do you pay council tax on a hotel?
On a hotel? No, you pay business rates.
Pay business rates.
Of course.
So would it be reasonable for someone operating a hotel model, which is what the appellant has been doing, to pay council tax where council tax isn't due on a property?
No, of course not.
So in terms of the fact that no council tax has been paid in respect to the rooms, your point is?
My point is it doesn't support the claim of 4-year residential immunity. if there was payment of council tax for 4 years, then obviously that would support the claim for this appeal. But the fact that there's no record to support the claim in this appeal for
And
payment of council tax,
are you saying that if a person under the old regime builds a house, lives in it for 4 years and doesn't pay any council tax, that means the house hasn't been used as a house?
absolutely not. No, it could still be a dwelling, of course. But the point I'm making is the non-payment of council tax, it doesn't support, does it? It kind of, it's the opposite, isn't it?
But it's part of a complete account that's
course.
been given by the appellant and his daughter.
Yeah, and it's
in
part of
this
the
respect.
complete account.
You look at the whole.
Yeah, sure.
In respect to the business rates, if I can take you to the appellant's proof of evidence. And if we have a look at 4.7 to 4.9. So your point on the business rates is that the property had been taken off the business rates in June 2024, or the register. Is that right?
Mm.
And here is the appellant's explanation for this. Do you have any observations on that explanation?
Well, normally, as I say, a building, a commercial building is, it either pays business rates or it can pay council tax. If it's residential, it pays either one or the other, you know, if it's in operation. So the fact that it wasn't paying business rates or council tax, again, it doesn't support this claim.
And it's explained that it's a genuine error, that no rates have been paid and it was taken off, and steps are being taken to resolve that. I know there was some eyeball rolling earlier when I referenced the fact that those bank statements were showing payments in relation to this property. At the time, I struggled for the reference to that. But if I can take you to 4.3 of the proof. Of the appellant, and at 4.3, you've got the appellant summarising the documentary evidence. And here you have the bank statements at the second bullet point showing rental income from named tenants from 2021 to 2026. And then when you have a look at the names of some of the tenants, such as E. Pavlaki, these are people who have names on the tenancy agreements, aren't they?
Mm.
And so that's why I say these are evidence of payments in respect of this property, the George.
Mm.
Do you accept that?
What I would say is, yes, you can see there are payments probably for the George, which match tenancy agreements, but there are missing gaps. And this is what I'm saying. This is why I consider it to be unreliable information, because there are gaps in tenancies. There are gaps in the information on the bank statements.
And the appellant, through him and his witness, given that explanation as
Sure.
to why that is, and it's for the inspector to assess.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily make it unreliable. It just adds something that you can raise for the inspector to weigh in the balance.
Sure. Yeah, if more information was to come my way, or, you know, during the appeal, that we could consider that would support the claim more, then yeah, it would be less unreliable. But in my view, looking at the information as I did prior to this inquiry today, that was my view. There wasn't enough information. There's lots of gaps.
In respect of personalisation of the rooms, again, your position in respect of photographs, toys, is that this shows a residential dwelling.
Yeah.
Now, the appellant's explanation for that has been, well, through NASLI, this particular tenant has a child that comes to visit when he's staying there. Now, just to be clear, your position in respect to that is that undermines the idea of been operating as a hotel.
it's more likely to be a dwelling. Looking at
More likely to be a dwelling. We know that's how you've categorised it, and
Okay.
that's how come we're here today. One of the other criticisms that's levelled at the appellant is the failure to give you access to rooms when you attend unannounced. Now, appreciating that you have powers, and you spell that out later on in email correspondence, can you understand why someone running a hotel would not necessarily want their guests to be disturbed by enforcement officers attending unannounced and going in?
more with a dwelling, I would have that consideration. But when it's being described as a hotel, you know, if a man or a lady was to come off the street and walk into a hotel as such, and they want to see a room, I would expect to see a room available.
An empty room? What about a fully booked hotel? You couldn't go in and demand to see a room when there's someone in there.
Well,
We've seen what happens when people enter hotel rooms with a key when they shouldn't do, and there are people asleep in there. But the point with this, and it's always been this point, is that throughout this period, the appellant and his family have been operating this as a hotel model. It is only when the local authority clarifies that they say it's flats that the appellant says, okay, well, looking at the evidence, we accept that categorization. Even today, you heard Mr. Sabipur say, in response to questions about how valuable the property would become, that it didn't matter. He wants to operate it as his business. Now, so I've come to the end of my cross-examination, but I'm just going to put the case to you. We have a situation here where you have a family who have been operating an apart hotel. And they are suddenly told that actually the local authority considers this to be flats. As a result of that, an enforcement notice is issued. And the decision is made based on the evidence that's been put before you. It's been put before the inspector, and it's for the inspector to assess. That to deal with the enforcement notice, the argument will be made that based on the evidence, the use now claimed by the local authority had in effect been occurring for 4 years. You understand that? Knowing that you're not the witness dealing with deliberate concealment, though you have made a few points in that regard, just going to put to you that this isn't a case of deliberate concealment, is it? This is a case of a recharacterization of a use that the appellant considered to be lawful.
but
I don't mind
what?
Nick's answering that. Yeah. Scope of his evidence, he's not dealing with it. But I don't mind. But I'm just making that point.
all I would say to that is, having looked at the information from both at the start of the investigation and now during this appeal, the two sets of different information, I can look at the information as being parts inconsistent, ambiguous, imprecise, and the word I keep using, unreliable.
Yes, you can say all of the statutory trigger words, and we'll deal with those in closing submissions.
So that
We wouldn't be in this position, would we, if the enforcement notice had been issued slightly earlier?
no, we wouldn't be. No,
Because we wouldn't be able to argue the ground D.
It would
because
be
the
a ground
4
D,
years
no.
wouldn't have run.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. No questions from me that haven't already been asked. So, Mr. Ranatonga.
Thank you. Just briefly, you asked questions about the appellant's approach, all right, and what was said that there was an investigation, and then the council gave a view, and the appellant took the view. Well, if the council says it is, then we'll take that and we'll prove to you that the use is immune. You recall those questions?
I do.
Just into and what was put to you specifically is, well, that's not wrong, right? Do you recall that question?
Yes.
And then you said, well, in response, you were looking at expediency on the enforcement notice. Just help me with this. In terms of the appellant's approach, was that something that was informed by professional planning expertise or not?
Well, it was, yeah, with Mr. Gran.
Yeah.
Heavily
So-
involved.
So in terms of the approach they took, which was to, I mean, the correspondence is there for everyone to see, about saying what was there. It's put to you that it's not wrong to have changed tack, but what do you say about the way that they've approached it, if anything?
Surprising with some of the terminology used. Like for example, with the planning agent, some of his emails, which described as not domestic dwellings. So yeah, I was a bit surprised with the sudden with the change.
And just in terms of expediency, the questions were put to you about a planning application was offered, and you were mentioning expediency. One of the matters in expediency is about the planning breach. Another is
Sure.
about time limits.
Yeah.
Is that something you're familiar with or not?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am. Yes.
To what extent would that have been a factor in your considerations?
Well, we're
when
talking about a
looking
4-year
expediency?
period, which points to possible immunity.
Mhm.
Obviously, if it goes beyond that, of course, like in this case, and
So how would that have been relevant to correspondence about waiting for a planning application?
well, it could go over the period and automatically fall into immunity, which is not what obviously something we wanted to happen, of course. Not when we established the expediency, like for example the size of the rooms, for example. It was a matter that we decided to act once we had the information we felt we needed and determined a material change of use.
Thank you. You were taken to the appellant's witness statement on the position with business rates. Do you recall that question? And what was put to you is that, do you accept that that was a genuine error? Do you remember that question?
Yes.
Yeah. Just help me. How did the error come to light?
From my understanding, the actual assessment was removed from the rating list, the business rates rating list, in June 24 due to major works. But I must admit, at that time, I didn't know which area it covered, whether it was just the ground floor, whether it covered the first and second floors. I did make inquiries, but I didn't get the information I needed. But I assumed, because it said hotel and premises,
Yeah.
that it included
But
the whole building. But the fact
is
that
it
it was taken
something
out of the
that-
rating list,
Is it something that the appellant has found for themselves and raised as an issue? Or is it something that you found and raised having done your research?
that it was taken out of the list.
Yeah.
It would have been taken out of the list because the appellant would have raised the issue with the valuation office.
Yes. But
Yeah.
in terms of how it's come to light at this inquiry, how has it come to light?
It would have been, I looked on the records.
Yeah.
On council tax and business rates.
Thank you. Those are my questions in re-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Are we all happy to carry on? Yeah.
Yes.
Just gonna grab my water, please.
Please be afraid. I, followed by full name,
I, Christella Menson,
do solemnly,
do solemnly,
sincerely,
sincerely,
and truly declare
and truly declare
and affirm
and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Your name is Christella Menson, is that right?
Correct.
And you have a master's degree in planning, and you're a chartered member of the Royal Town Planning Institute, MRTPI.
That's correct.
You have 15 years of experience working for various local authorities and regulatory services,
That's
10
correct.
years in planning enforcement, is
That's
that right?
correct.
And you're currently employed by North Herts Council as Conservation and Planning Enforcement Team Leader.
That's correct.
Now, you deal in this case with the deliberate concealment element, yes?
That's correct.
And there's a degree of consensus, I think, on the principles that apply, all right, and the legal principles and sort of how you've approached it, yes?
That's correct.
I just want to take you on that basis, please, to your section on deliberate concealment, which is page 9 of your proof.
Yeah, I'm there.
And you refer to the concept from the Welland Hatfield case and the 4 tests.
Yes, that's correct.
And then you go on in your proof to address each of those. All right.
That's correct.
Now, of course, the inspector's read the proof, so we don't need to go through it. But can you just summarize, please, and help us? You've also been in the room to hear all of the evidence, yes?
That's correct.
Yes. So can you just take each of them, each of the limbs in turn, and help us, please, with how you see it in terms of whether there's been deliberate concealment?
Sure. Thank you. So starting first of all with the concept of positive deception, having reviewed the information that was provided throughout the investigation and also as part of the appeal, I was able to assess the information and to make some conclusions. By way of example,
Miss Manson, just hold you there. I think some of the people in the room having struggle hearing. Can you maybe turn on that other microphone?
this one as well.
To say,
Is that any clearer?
yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
I think it switched itself off. Okay, so I'll just outline again. I was just saying that having reviewed the information as part of the investigation that was submitted to us, I made some assessments and drew some conclusions. So in terms of positive deception, I'd just like to make reference to some examples. So we've heard as part of the evidence today some references to the conclusions that were drawn as part of the investigation that was undertaken in 2022. I think it's really important to mention at this stage that the investigation was certainly looking into the material change of use to residential use and of the residential dwelling. And the information that we received from the appellant at that stage was that the use at that time was as hotel. Now, on the basis of that information, the investigation was closed on the basis that there was no material change of use identified at that time. Now, when we look at the ground of appeal in this case before us, what we're looking at is a ground de appeal where the appellant is asserting that the use actually is not a hotel use, but it's self-contained residential flats, and that use has persisted for more than 4 years. Now, on the basis that the information submitted as part of the appeal is in conflict with the information that we've received in 2022, we do need to do some exploration as to what would be the effects of that. And it's my conclusion that this is an example of positive deception on that regard. If I can just give a further example that supplements that, is that reviewing the emails that were received throughout the second investigation, particularly, but also some information that we received, we've already heard by way of evidence and by way of planning applications that were submitted and some of the responses and discussions that were around that. Certainly the information that we were receiving in writing at that time was telling us that the use was consistently hotel use. Now, we're learning today, as I've just mentioned, that that was the incorrect use that was being reported. We've heard some submissions as to how that's come about, but it's my conclusion that that's a further example that amounts to positive deception. When we've looked at the, thirdly, when we've looked at the PCN responses that were received, we've heard some discussions today about the consequences that are attached to giving correct information and incorrect information to penalty to planning contravention notices. And the responses that we received also to direct questions, some of them again were in conflict with information that we'd previously received. So what we have here is an accumulation of information where we are being given incorrect information by the appellants regarding the use, and it's my submission that that is an example, incorrect information is an example of positive deception. If I just may give a couple more examples, because I just would like to explain a little bit more fully, is that we've looked at some photographs earlier regarding the presentation of rooms when officers went and visited, and what did that look like? What was the impression that was given? So having reviewed those, it appeared to me that some of the photos, certainly the ones that we've looked at today, appeared, in my view, to have been staged for the officer's planned site visit. And when we review that against the photographic evidence that we've seen submitted as part of the appeal and the declaration of the use as residential self-contained flats, there is a clear difference and a distinction. Again, it's my submission that that's an example of positive deception. The last point I would like to make in that regard is that we have heard reference regarding the questions that were being asked, who was asking those questions, when those questions about the use was being asked. And it's my submission that at the time of the use, we've certainly got examples where the PCNs, as we've mentioned, the emails, as we've mentioned, the information to the Planning Control Committee that we've already heard. What we had was a pattern, a continuation of what we're told was synonymous use. And it's my submission that actually hotel use is clearly different to residential use. It's my submission that it is apparent. You don't need specialist knowledge for that. It's my submission that the appellant was clearly aware of that. And that's a further example of positive deception.
Okay, can you deal with undermining the process next, please?
Okay, in terms of undermining the process, having established that the examples that I've just outlined, what we then need to look at is what would be the effect of that? Why does that matter? Now, incorrect use is stated in various areas that I've already covered would then mean that the planning control process would be bypassed. It would also mean that viability that we've heard about would not be tested. It would also mean that the use of the property could operate under the veil of a hotel use, when actually, as we've heard, and by way of this ground of appeal, it is actually a self-contained use. There is one more point I'd like to mention in that regard, and it is in submissions, that use of land for residential flats, there is an obligation and an expectation to meet specific minimum space standards. Now, we've heard today that the rooms are woefully inadequate to be used as residential flats. They fall nowhere near meeting the space standards. In terms of some of the smallest rooms, I believe they fell short of the space standard by more than 50%. I think in one case it was more than 60, potentially 70%. So in terms of undermining the planning process, those are the examples there. Linked to that, we just need to ask ourselves, did it? What would be the impact of that?
So is this moving on to actual impact?
So moving on to actual
Yep.
impact. So I have just 5 points I'd like to make on that regard. Firstly, the use would have been gained without the required planning permission. It would potentially evaded and delayed enforcement action, as we've already heard. It would have also meant that a material change of use to the character of the land would have occurred without going through due planning process. And also importantly in this case, it would mean the loss of a community asset and its contribution to the area. And finally, the development again of substandard residential flats, the use, the occupation, the residing of people in substandard accommodation. And those are the points I've got in terms of what was the impact of undermining the planning process.
Okay, and then lastly, profiting from wrongdoing.
In terms of profiting from wrongdoing, I make 4 points. Firstly, the rental income that we've already heard about. There are bank statements that we've already seen as a result of the residential use. Relatedly, the income from letting the flats in comparison to letting them as hotels. So what's the differential between the two? And we've already heard and understood that certainly there'd be more income that would be generated through letting them as flat, or reliability also, than letting them as hotels. The third point I wanted to make was in relation to council tax. No payments of council tax over a sustained period is a significant amount and it's a significant benefit. But importantly, the last point I would like to make would be about the attempts to forestall enforcement action to prevent and evade the local planning authority from bringing the unauthorised use to an end, or from bringing it into its returning it to its lawful use. And that's my points. Thank you.
Thank you. As with Mr. Curling, you've been in the room to hear all of the evidence from the appellants.
Correct.
Is there anything that changes your view about deliberate concealment, having heard that evidence?
No change in my view whatsoever.
Thank you. Those are my questions in examination in chief.
Thank you, Mr. Vanatunga. Mr. Bell, I'll have some questions for you now.
Thank you.
Thank you. You'll be pleased to know I can be relatively short with you on this because, in effect, I think what you've done in your statement is you've actually drafted my learned friend's closings in respect of deliberate concealment. There are a few little points that I just want to question you on. In respect of deliberate concealment, kind of deliberate obviously connotates knowingly concealing something.
Correct.
So in the situation where you have a person who genuinely believes that they've been running a hotel model and they give responses to PCNs on that basis, would that be deliberate concealment?
I do not believe those to be the circumstances before us today. I think it's quite difficult when you ask me a hypothetical scenario because there would be other factors that come at play. Apologies, I'm trying to turn this one on, but it's not wanting to play ball at the moment. But I'll try and speak up a little bit more if I can.
Thank you.
But maybe if I just, okay, I've got this one again. Okay. Could you just please repeat the end of your question? Because I just had a response in mind and I've
So
lost it.
what I suggested is you had a person who believed they were running a legitimate hotel model. And if that belief was genuine, then that wouldn't be deliberate concealment, would it?
Yeah, so my response was that I don't believe that to be the circumstances
Yes.
before us today.
Yes.
What I can say is that incorrect information can amount to deliberate concealment, and those I believe to be the matters
So-
that are relevant
But
today.
deliberately incorrect information
Correct,
as opposed to mistaken information.
deliberately.
Thank you. Now, you've made it very clear throughout your proof and within the last few seconds as to what your view is on this, but you appreciate that this is a view that the inspector has to come to
Right.
himself. And as a result, in our closing submissions, we'll be addressing the evidence to the tests as we see it. Now, you have heard one of the consistent threads, and it's correct to say it's consistent, is it? Up until the point that the council said, we think these are flats. Throughout, they have said, the appellants, members of his family and staff have said, this is an apart hotel or a form of hotel. That's correct, isn't it?
That's correct. In terms of the responses that were given, they were qualified by also making reference to the nature of the use, which supported also a hotel. So I don't accept that it was a kind of a linguistic slip saying hotel where it meant something else. What we were told, and certainly some of the information clearly stated, it is a hotel and it's not self-contained flats.
I'm not asking you to accept it. I appreciate you're not going to accept it.
No.
I can say as much as I want on that regard, but I suspect I know what the answer is going to be. But what the points I'm putting to you are points that I then need to address the inspector on in closing. Okay. Now, in 2022, if we have a look at NHC 47, which is the letter from the appellant.
Sorry, did you say NHC 47?
Yeah, NHC 47, the appellant's letter of the 1st of April 2022.
Yes, I'm there.
So here you have the appellant's account. The inspector's seen it before. He's been taken to it. What precisely do you say is misleading in this letter?
Is misleading in the letter. The letter in its entirety talks about and describes a hotel use. The basis of the appeal in front of us today is clearly about the use as self-contained residential flats. So to flip a hotel use and say actually meant flats is what I would say is an example of concealment. Incorrect information.
But you understand in situations where an appellant has been arguing, not even an appellant, should we say, a member of the public has been arguing that they're running a hotel as part of an enforcement investigation. And it's one of their businesses. They draw money from the makeup of their hotel and the way it's run. So it has its self-catering facilities. When they're suddenly presented with an enforcement notice that says it's a self-contained flat, or they are self-contained flats, and that enforcement notice is issued after the 4-year time limit has potentially expired, and I appreciate that's an issue for dispute. That's issue 1 in the appeal, and that's to be determined. You appreciate why an appellant may say, well, actually, looking at how the council has categorised this, we accept that this could be seen as residential flats, notwithstanding the way we've run it. You understand that?
I understand it, but I don't accept that, no.
No. And that's perfectly fine. So in 2022, the council was made aware there were kitchenettes, and then there's the email from Mr. Gran, which is NHC2. Again, we've seen this email before.
Oh, I just go to.
And in that email, Mr. Gran explains the new hotel model. And so this is the 4th of April. This is the email that accompanies the letter. So Mr. Gran says a focus on week-long stays for business customers primarily, and then goes on to explain that they're not self-contained dwellings. So back in 2022, what do you say is the only information that the council don't have? What is missing from these responses that would have made the council say at that point, we're issuing an enforcement notice?
Okay, so we were looking at the material change of use from a hotel to self-contained dwellings. The information here is saying there has been no change of use and there are not self-contained dwellings.
Okay. And you've heard from the appellant and his witness that at the time they believed they were running a hotel. You don't accept that?
I heard that, yes.
Which is fine. Coming back to the appellant's letter, so NHC 47. And if we come to the penultimate paragraph on the second page. The appellant says, the hotel apartment rooms are genuinely occupied by single business people who have working patterns of Monday to Friday. The guests generally stay for around 1 month, although some have requested to extend this stay. So here, put before the council, is someone saying, it's not residential use, we're running a hotel, it's a different model, there are longer stays. We're saying at this point, stay is a month, but people are requesting to extend that stay. And off the back of that, the council was satisfied that there'd been no breach of planning control at that time.
That's correct.
And so it boils down to the fact that back in 2022, because the appellant and his planning agent didn't say in response, these are self-contained residential flats, that's what you say is the deliberate concealment.
No, what I'm saying is because the information in 2022 didn't describe a self-contained use, a self-contained flats, that is the fundamental difference in terms of the use. What we're hearing here in 2022, we've got a description of a hotel matched by the types of uses that were happening at that time that the appellant responded to, which spoke about how the land was being used at that time. And that was consistent with their information that it was, the use was as a hotel.
And so we come to 2025 and the PCNs in 2025. So the March PCN in 2025. We have them, sorry, that's NHC3.
Yes, I'm there. Thank you.
We have the responses in red
Uh,
and under E.
yes, I'm there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it appears from our research that rooms on the first and second floors have been rented out short-term accommodation. When did this commence? And again, you have the appellant explaining the use and explaining the use of the rooms operate under a hotel apartment model.
That's correct.
And function as self-contained hotel units.
That's correct.
And are the terms of occupation, this is F, subject to any tenancy or license agreements? And there we say yes, check-in form along with terms and conditions between business and each guest.
That's correct.
And then we have the GDPR issue, that information was withheld. And at that point, I think it was then fairly accepted that later on, following advice, they decided not to withhold that evidence. Again, with this, is the only issue with what wasn't disclosed was the fact that they didn't say these are self-contained residential flats.
No, I think I need to repeat my previous answer. I think what we've heard a lot about today is the characterization. I feel like I've heard that word used frequently today. But I think what is fundamental that there is a really good understanding is that the use of the land as a hotel is fundamentally different to the use of the land as self-contained flats. So it's not about which words are missing in the information. What was clearly being described in terms of the use was a hotel use. What the appeal is about today is about the use as
Yes.
residential use, and there is a clear mismatch between
No,
that
I think the
information.
inspector has that point, and we agree. The reason that we are saying it's long-term residential use is having reviewed our case upon the issue of the enforcement notice. We can see that the hotel use we've been running shares the same character.
Sorry, I missed a word. You said the hotel use was running.
The hotel use they're running shares the characteristics of residential use. So as a result, when presented with a enforcement notice of this nature, and we say that actually the behaviour complained of or the planning use complained of has been ongoing for over 4 years, this is how we have to react to this appeal.
I disagree because I believe that once again we're talking about the characteristics. So some of the fundamental questions are how was the land used, who was the land land used by? How was it occupied? And the information that you're presenting to me doesn't overcome that, in my view.
So I think it's fair to say that we're not in one of those situations where you're saying that a use has been physically hidden. They haven't disguised.
I wouldn't say that the whole building has been physically hidden, but it is my view that when officers, sorry, I say officers, but I actually mean officer, came to undertake the site visits, and certainly from the photos that I have reviewed, it appeared to me that there was certainly a presentation that was trying to give the impression of a hotel type of use, which matched the information that we were being given, rather than a kind of, you know, a residential use, which is what we're seeing as part of the appeal submissions.
So I don't have any more questions, but I'll just put the case to you again. In this appeal, we have an appellant who believed they were operating a lawful hotel model and responded. You don't have to accept it, and responded to PCN requests on that basis. Subsequently, the council decided to pin their colours to the mast and say, this is self-contained residential dwellings. And the appellant looked at their case, reviewed it, and said, okay, yes, we see that that could be a thing. This isn't a case of deliberate concealment. This is a case of recharacterization of a use.
I disagree.
And that's the perfect place to stop.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I have no further questions, Ms. Manson, so feel free to join your party.
None for me either.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, we did quite well, actually, catching up a little bit.